So here's number 4. So our first task is to write our equivalent expression for this. So we have cosine. Remember that the minus is part of this. So I know it seems kind of silly, but I'm just trying to get you to know that this is a plus pi over 6. You know what? No parentheses. Then I can put the parentheses. There we go. So that means that my shift, this guy, is going to be what the shift is. We're not going left pi over 6. We're going right pi over 6. Okay. Now this is a cosine. And so I know cosine looks like that. So it starts off at 1, and it goes to 0, then -1, then 0, then +1. All right. Now the period of this is just, again, the number in front of x is 1. So it's just 2 pi over 1, which is just 2 pi, which means that the length of each quarter, they're never going to ask you for the length of the quarter, but it helps you to know where your tick marks. Where are all of these important values, your peaks, your x-intercepts, and so on. So that's just 1/4 times 2 pi. Okay, and pi over 4, 2 pi over 4 is just pi over 2. Okay. My amplitude is just 1. So my range is from -1 to 1. Oops. So here's 1. All right. So these are my usual values. Pi over 2 or 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. But we're moving to the right pi over 6. And you can use your calculator if you want. Ignore the pi. Just type in 0 plus 1/6, 1/2 plus 1/6, 1 plus 1/6, and then you can tack on the pi later. So this is just pi over 6. Okay? Pi over 2 plus pi over 6 is, let's see, 3 pi, that's 4 pi over 6. Okay, and then we have pi plus pi over 6. That's 7 pi over 6. Okay, really what we're doing is you can think of this as 3 pi over 6, since everything's in sixths. And so we're just moving, we start with pi over 6, then add 3, add 3. The next one will be 9 pi over 6. Add 3 more, 12 pi over 6. Oh, I wish. Add 3, Gilbert. So 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 pi over 6, then 13 pi over 6. Right? And so we can graph these points. So pi over 6, I conveniently labeled it so that this is pi over 6. This would be 2 pi over 6. Let me put the numbers down here. Don't mind me. Just writing this out. All right, and so we can write down all our stuff. So pi over 6 goes to 1. Okay, 4 pi over 6 is 0. 7 pi over 6 is -1. And notice that I'm just moving 3. 1, 2, 3, put the next dot. 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 And so my graph looks like that. All right. So again, each dot is placed pi over 2 away from each other. Notice that the distance from here to here is pi over 2, same as the distance from here to there. So we still have our 4 regions. It's just that since the shift was pi over 6, I made each tick mark pi over 6, so it'll be easier to plot the shift. But anyway, hopefully you got that, and let me know if you have any questions.